What is up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Two Game Podcast. I have reviewed the first 3 seasons plus episode 1. You can catch that at a link right here if you want to hear my thoughts on the previous seasons leading up to Born Again, which is on Disney Plus. Episode number 2. Let's dive into this. Full spoilers ahead. So if you have not watched episode 1 or episode 2, highly recommend pausing this, coming back, and checking out my thoughts on episode number 2. So I did enjoy episode 1. I thought some of the first 20 minutes was a little jarring because it didn't necessarily look like the Netflix series of old, but it definitely got me interested in what this series can be. So just recapping episode 2, which is titled Optics, Matt decides to represent Hector, who ends up being a white tiger who assaulted a dirty cop while trying to help Nikki Torres before the cop was accidentally killed by a train. While attempting to improve his optics in the first days of his office, Fisk learns from Ben Urich's niece, young journalist Bibi, that the New York Police Department, Commissioner Gallo, is poised to resign in protest of poor conditions. Fisk threatens Gallo's family to force him back into office. To deal with the pressures of the press, he and Vanessa start attending couples therapy with Heather, who is dating Matt at this point, as their therapist. Matt tracks down Torres and helps him escape by fighting off the corrupt cops. So first things first, I think this episode is definitely a little bit slower up until the final, 5-10 minutes or so. I think it's more of kind of putting these characters where they're at in their lives. Heather is dating Matt now. We have Fisk, who's trying to kind of deal with the in and outs of being mayor, and it kind of focuses more so on Fisk this episode than any of the other characters. And we get a little bit more of the corruption that is infiltrating the NYPD. So we're kind of retreading same waters from previous seasons in terms of that corruption. But we do get introduced to Hector, who ends up being White Tiger, who took up the mantle of Daredevil while Daredevil has been retired. And apparently, I don't know much about White Tiger. I've never read any comics with him in it. They kind of just breeze by what and who he is, to be completely honest with you. They make mention of the fact that he has an amulet that gives him magical powers, but that's really it. They don't really dive into who White Tiger is, what he stands for, how he got his powers. So I don't know if that's going to be something that they explore later on this season, but to just kind of breeze by over that, I feel like they should have kind of pushed all that into this episode, because we need to get to know Hector in order to care for him. And I think pushing that off into future episodes, if that even happens, I don't know if I care for that too much. So we'll see how that kind of plays out over the course of this season. But speaking of how things are going to play out, I'm very curious to know how Muse, who's this psychopathic killer, comes into the mix, because we don't have any inkling of him showing up as of yet. Is Bullseye locked up for good, or is he going to come back later this season? Was that just a plot thread that they kind of wanted to close? I'm not entirely sure, because I feel like he had a decent ending to season 3. It left you with the idea that he could come back, but to bring him back into the mix and then just kind of keep him off for the rest of the series, I hope that's not what happens. And then ultimately, where does Wilson Fisk fall into the mix of all these characters? Is he responsible? I know he says that he had no play in Foggy being killed, but let's be honest here. I feel like Fisk has some play in all of this. Some way or another, he's involved in some of this. And we already get some of his corruption, how he's dealing with the police commissioner. He's already threatening him and his family to get the things that he wants. So bad habits die hard, all right? And he's not going away with his corruption, and he's going to continue to be the type of character that we've come to know over the first 3 seasons. Now, let's talk about 2 of the main characters that are being introduced into this new series, and that is Hector and Heather. So Heather is the girlfriend now of Matt. I like what they are doing with her, and now that they're making Vanessa and Wilson as 2 of her patients, honestly, I feel like that's pre-planned. I definitely feel like Wilson Fisk knows for a fact that them two are dating, and he's just weaseling his way into the mix. So that's definitely going to cause some drama later on this season that I can't wait for that to unfold. But outside of that, we haven't got a ton of time with Heather. I like the idea of what she presents to Matt and what she means to Matt. So I wouldn't say that I'm invested in her character right now. She doesn't match up to any of the characters that have been introduced in like the first 3 seasons. We haven't got enough time with her, I don't think. So I'm hoping we get to spend more time with her over the next couple episodes to where we can really start falling in love with her as a character. I'm intrigued. I'm on board. I wouldn't say that I love her character or even Hector's character at this point. He seems to be likable, and so does Heather. And what does that mean for Karen? She didn't show up for this episode. So again, I don't think she's coming back. She may come back for like a last episode or something like that. But I don't think she's coming back this season, honestly. I think they have completely just kind of written her out of the show. And yeah, she might be mentioned every once in a while, but I think we're focused on this new era of Daredevil, and they have completely turned their back on 2 of the huge characters from season 1 through 3, which is a little disappointing. I think Karen, to me, I fell in love with her more so in season 3. That was really where she started clicking for me. So it's a little disappointing that we don't get to have her back as of right now. So does she come back? That remains to be seen. I hope she does. But as of right now, it doesn't look good for the Karen fans out there. And then that leads me to the final 5 to 10 minutes. So Matt is following this cop that was involved in the... So Matt is following that dirty NYPD cop, and he finds out that they have located Nicky Torres, the guy that White Tiger had saved. So he goes and tries to save him, and it builds the tension very nicely, I think. And then the NYPD cops start beating the shit out of Matt, and then that's when the switch just flips for him, and he just legitimately beats the shit out of both of these cops, ends up breaking one of their arms, and it looks like he snaps the neck of the other cop. And going into this season and this new series on Disney Plus, that was one of the things that we were all curious about. Would they be able to continue with the violence of the Netflix series? And to me, I think they nailed it with the scene. And it's even more so in this episode. I feel like this has more violence than what we got in either of the first 3 seasons of Daredevil. So I'm glad that the showrunners and Disney and Marvel are not holding back for this new series. And I enjoyed the violence, guys. It was great. This was a pretty damn good fight between Matt and these 2 dirty cops. But what does that mean going forward? Matt is more violent than ever. He's breaking a dude's arm. He's potentially snapping some dude's neck when he falls. That line of killing versus not killing anymore. It seems like he has completely just crossed over it, and he's just doing whatever the hell he wants. Doesn't even think twice about it. How that is further explored throughout this season, I am so interested and intrigued by. I can't wait for those moments of where he is dealing with the repercussions of some of the bad shit that he has done. So I can't wait for episode 3 and what this means for the future of the series. And even that guttural scream at the very end, you can feel that anger. He knows he can't stop, and he's crossed that line, and that scream just kind of highlights all those feelings that he's having. And I really can't wait for the show to explore those feelings that he's having, especially in this particular moment. So we'll see what episode 3 has in store for us. Guys, I liked episode 2. A lot of setting the kitchen table, so to speak, with Fisk, and we get more so of him than anything else. But yeah, I can't wait for episode 3. Guys, let me know down in the comments below of what you think about episode 2. How do you feel about the very end and the violence? What do you think is going to happen in subsequent episodes with Matt dealing with the repercussions of some of the events that have happened in these first 2 episodes? Let me know down in the comments below. Yeah, guys, that's going to be it for me. I will catch y'all next week for my review of episode 3. Later.